Canada's been very bad to us on trade, but now Canada's going to have to start paying up. And Canada's been tough on the military because they have a very low military cost. They think we're going to, protect them with our military, which is unfair. We just don't need their product. And yet they survive off the fact that we do 95% of what they do.
Any tariff on steel and aluminum is going to negatively impact U.S. and Canadian workers, U.S. and Canadian families, U.S. and Canadian businesses. That is for sure. And that is a case that we are continuing to make to the U.S. administration.
Since U.S. President Donald Trump was sworn in 24 days ago, yes, just 24 days ago, there's been a steady stream of Canadian ministers, and all this week you had Canadian premiers going south on a charm offensive to Washington, D.C. They were hoping to shore up American allies in the face of Trump's threats. So is all that work paying off? Let's bring in the front bench. Michelle Cardero is the former Deputy Chief of Staff to Paul Martin. She is the CEO of Vanguard Strategy, former Alberta MLA and Cabinet Minister Gary Marr. He's the President and CEO of the Canada West Foundation, CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. And we've also got Toronto's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Rob Benzie, who is in Washington and has been down there. Rob, that's why we're going to start with you here. Do you get the sense that the premiers feel like they made progress down there?
I think the fact that they had their meetings in Washington, including that last-minute session at the White House, is not unhelpful to them. They were here at the same time as Dominic LeBlanc, the federal finance minister. And Mike, you know what? It really was a Team Canada-style mission. They weren't working at cross purposes. The 13 premiers, first time they had all been in Washington at the same time, so that was a significant thing. Kristen Hillman, the ambassador to Washington, told us that is very important. It sends a message that Canada is united. Now, most of the elected officials on both sides of the aisle that they met with aren't in favor of Canada as a 51st state or 25% tariffs. The problem is the one person who matters is still spouting off about those things. And it's all well and good to go to the White House to speak to Trump people, to bump into Elon Musk in the hallway, as Wab Canoe said. But is it having an impact right now? No. But it's in the long term, we're not going to be a 51st state. Trump is probably not going to be able to sustain a long-term trade war because he was only elected because the cost of living was high in the United States and people were resentful of that. And I think that's something that's going to be in the back of his mind. He's not foolish. He may be a bit on the cray-cray side, but he's not a fool.
Michelle Cardero, apologize for mispronouncing that earlier. To Rob's point, I mean, it's only 4 years and the cost of living is top of mind. But I sort of also look at this and consider what James Blair wrote on social media. So I'm wondering whether or not it continues to punch through or not, or are we just not meeting with the right people?
Well, I think that until Americans actually feel it, then, they're going to be talking to their congresspeople. I think that these congresspeople, the senators, the governors, particularly those whose states are very reliant on Canadian goods, know full well what the impact of this is. But I think it's important that we're there, that we're continuing to be there. Any additional information that we can give is great. Any preparation or warning signs that maybe these folks can give to the White House is fantastic, because its absence, we would not be doing, and they would not be doing their jobs. However, Rob's right. Like, the only person that's going to decide this is Donald Trump, and it's going to depend on his mood that day, whether his cornflakes were soggy or not. And we've just got to kind of hold our breath. Let's hope that it's only 2 years of complete chaos and this anxiety, and that maybe at the midterms something else evens out. But even so, we're just going to have to soldier on. And I think that kudos to all the premiers for going down there. I think that no matter what happens in whatever election campaign, it's going to be a very, very well-run flight between Ottawa and DC.
Gary, do you think that we have to feel the pain and they have to feel the pain before there's any kind of remedy here? And I say that pointing to Chrystia Freeland's op-ed in the New York Times today, where she talked about the renegotiation and how it really did kind of punch through once they saw that there was a strong response from Canada, and that, you know, consumers down there started to feel the pain. Is that what Canadians right now just need to realize, is that this will take time to sort out, but ultimately it's once the electorate in the United States starts pushing back and he starts hearing it, you know, from his people?
I think the way that I'd sum that up is to say that hopefully self-interest will result in self-correction. And I think that if we look back to 1971, when the Nixon tariffs came in, it helped drive inflation in the United States, and the tariffs didn't last very long. I know there's been lots of economic analysis, and the modeling is difficult because we don't know how long these tariffs are going to last. So I think that it is good that the premiers are down there. I give them credit for that. I mean, when you listen to Wab Kinew and saying, look, we got to chirp back, you know, it'd be like saying, well, you want to take over this as the 51st state? It was too cold for you at -3 to have an outdoor inauguration. You better think twice about trying to take over a country that's at -30. So I think that the premiers are doing the right thing by working with relationships and deepening our relationship with the United States, not only with individuals from the Congress or the Senate, but also people in the administration, and I think the business community. Give credit to Premier Kinew and Premier Moe, who also had a very successful set of side meetings, as did Premier Smith. Keep going, and I think I have the same kind of optimism that Wab Kinew has expressed today.
Yeah, the only problem with the whole temperature thing, Gary, is then we got to explain to them Celsius versus Fahrenheit. And I just don't know that anybody has the time for that. I don't know. Tom, what do you think? Do you think that, like a lot of the premiers or like Kinew, that we should just sort of keep smiling, keep calm, and carry on, but at the same time, good grip on the stick and ready to hit back?
Well, to your previous question, we should tell them that -40 centigrade or Celsius is the same thing as -40 Fahrenheit. So that's where the two cross, and we do get plenty of that. So that part they can figure out. I think that Kinew's hitting the right tone, but I'm also very proud. I mean, I think that the premiers did the right thing. It's a bit sketchy, to be honest, to see Doug Ford down there in the middle of a campaign as the premier, because he's in the middle of a campaign, and there are all sorts of constitutional and ethical problems with that. But be that as it may, he has been playing a strong role as the head of, for this time anyway, of the Council of the Federation, and his presence has been welcome and strong. I also think that what we've been able to do is to show that there's unity on the part of the provinces. And for the first time, I have to say, Mike, I've seen serious, cohesive talk about breaking down interprovincial barriers. Gary and I come from two provinces where our premiers were, for the first time ever, and Legault has opened up that door over the past 2 weeks, first from his environment minister 2 weeks ago on a big LNG project, and then a couple of days ago himself on whatever the newest form of Energy East would be. That's the oil pipeline. But he has been having, according to the French papers this afternoon, he's been having talks openly with Danielle Smith about that. That's a sea change. And you know, we've always had, talking about economic modeling, we know that it could boost Canada's GDP by something in the order of 4% if we were to start dropping some of these interprovincial barriers. And get rid of all of them would be ideal, because there's no reason for them. We've built up these little fiefdoms over the years, often in reaction to the lobbying of one or two parts. I was reading an article just yesterday about the one hog farmer in Ottawa, because Ottawa is a very large city, and there's this one hog farm, produces thousands of hogs, has to send them all to the States. Can't sell them into Quebec, not allowed. But as that was getting my dander up, I was born in Ottawa, after all, I found out that Quebec hog farmers can't sell into Ontario either. I mean, this is exactly the type of nonsense that's costing us. So this has concentrated our minds wonderfully. Trump is on today about reciprocity. He doesn't even know the word. If he understood what he was talking about, he wouldn't be threatening us with an outlandish 25 plus how much tariff on our own stuff. And by the way, that's money into his treasury, but it's money that comes out of the pocket of American consumers. Ford was explaining that it's going to be about $1,500 more for a Ford F-150. When the average American realizes that even with a 10% tariff, it's going to cost them 10, 15, maybe $20 more for a tank of gas because of Trump's tariffs, then we're going to see the inflation going up. He's going to blame it on Canada. Welcome to South Park. But at some point, the average American is going to say, no, no, you're the one who's raising the price of everything.
Yeah, I just hope that nobody has to worry about where Kenny is at the end of all of this to continue on that South Park analogy. Okay.